The Ministry of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment has unveiled what's called SanParks Vision 2040, which principally aims to create protected areas and a protected area agency to bring more formerly excluded communities into the biodiversity and conservation economy. Minister Barbara Creecy joins us now. Good evening and thank you for your time. Welcome. Minister, a big part of this vision pivots on creating an inclusive biodiversity economy to address economic exclusion, poverty and inequality. Take us into what a realization of this vision looks like.
Good evening, Iman, and greetings to all your viewers at home. I think this is a very exciting exercise that we are asking everybody to participate in. In 3 years' time, SanParks will be 100 years old. And as we come from the Kunming-Montreal Agreement on biodiversity and the adoption by our own cabinet of our white paper on biodiversity and conservation, the decision by SanParks to look at the kind of organization they hope will exist in 20 years' time couldn't have come at a more appropriate time. Obviously, one of the challenges we face coming from COP15 in Montreal is the expansion of protected areas so that we can in due course meet what science is telling us is the necessity to place 30% of the land and 30% of the sea under conservation so that we protect the fragile ecosystems that provide ecosystem services such as water, oxygen, carbon sequestration to human beings for free. Now, what we understand is that these objectives in our country have to be achieved under conditions where there is still vast inequality and poverty, and rural communities in particular living on the outskirts of national parks would want to see themselves being proper beneficiaries of tourism offerings, of potential offtake agreements if they were to place community-owned land in the disposal of conservation. So these are some of the ideas that would be explored in the course of this process over the next 3 months as we develop a vision for SanParks.
And I must say, you know, it's one of these important omissions often in plans that one is heartened by the way your ministry is seeking to create this inclusivity. That is a really important piece. When you talk about sharing the spoils, having access, but also having the foundational conversations with the communities involved is a really key part. You know, for those who are hearing us, the community activists and those that are involved in the sector, how do they effectively get involved?
Well, one of the processes, of course, is going to be a roadshow with face-to-face communication. There will be online opportunities, there will be opportunities for written submissions. But what we understand is that communities who live in rural areas often don't have access to modern means of communication and would be very appreciative of this face-to-face opportunity. Last week, I met with traditional authorities from across the country, and they did indicate to me that they are very supportive of conservation, but they want to be in a position where their rural communities can benefit in the same way, for example, that other communities have benefited, where we have the Association of Private Nature Reserves and we have taken down fences on the borders of the Kruger Park.
How do you create a balance between sharing the spoils and indigenous wisdoms around managing biospheres?
It's a very, very interesting issue that you're posing, Imran. We at the launch that we had on Tuesday, there were representatives from traditional healers there, and they spoke about traditional knowledge around conservation, but they also spoke about traditional knowledge in the medicinal use of plants and animals. And one of the I think the complicated issues that we face is how do we provide access to traditional healers, to the traditional plants that they would want to be able to collect, and how do we do that in a way which is sustainable and doesn't undermine biodiversity and ecosystem integrity.
So you have this plan, and you know, sometimes there's an understandable skepticism about plans that are too far or seem to be too far into the future. Although with complex plans, they do tend to have a longer rollout time. So what are the stages of growth and implementation, the signposts that will tell us how on track the program and the vision is?
Well, in the meeting I had with traditional authorities on Friday, they are interested to know if they were to place some of the land under their custodianship to be biodiversity and conservation land, where would the financing come to build tourist facilities on that land? If they were to have a limited offtake of plains game for consumption purposes, where would the resources come from to develop those game herds? And what would be the conditions under which some of our national parks would consider donating game? So I think that looking at where land is available, what would be the terms and conditions under which that land could be used for conservation, what kinds of economic activities are compatible with conservation land use, and of course the most important issue is where would the financing come from to make plans a reality.
And that was really going to be my closing question. Big machine like this needs a lot of financial lubrication. What is the projected economic impact? But even before you get there, what is the investment that communities who are going to be impacted can look forward to or can expect?
Well, Iman, this whole process that arises from COP15 in Montreal requires a long-term plan, and it requires proper costing. And it also requires proper investigation as to where the finances would come from. This development of the SanParks Vision would be part of that process. And I think that what we've learned in the climate space is that it's very important that you develop proper plans and you develop a proper understanding of the resources required in order that you can start to make those plans a reality.
So any numbers you want to proffer, Minister?
I don't. It's early days. I don't have numbers at the moment. What I can share with you is that the biodiversity economy in our country, both consumptive and non-consumptive use, is very big. There are almost 418,000 jobs in this sector of the economy. We believe that if we are to achieve the 30 by 30 target by close to mid-century, we would need to be at least doubling the livelihoods that this economy could sustain. And obviously that would require more than double the current investment. As I say, I don't have figures, but I'm sure it's a huge amount.
Well, we look forward to another interview with you where we can have, some sense of what that investment looks like and what the proposed boon is for those communities. Minister Barbara Creecy, thank you for your time tonight.